guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. And on this week's Property Education Masterclass, we're joined by the incredibly inspiring Chris Cassidy. Now, Chris is going to tell us his whole story of how he took adversity and turned it truly into opportunity, from losing his high-paying corporate job, how that pushed him into the world of serviced accommodation, and then how he used that serviced accommodation to create now his best life, where he lives in Spain, selling 3, 4, 5 million euro mansions on sea view cliff tops. And he is truly the happiest he's ever been. Guys, this episode really shows what's possible with some grit, some determination, and a desire to live your best life. Now, if you get inspired through this, guys, if you get knowledge from this episode, I would urge you to please go and follow the show. Leave us a review. It helps us more than I can possibly explain. I would really appreciate it. Until we get to that time, grab a cup of tea, get settled in. This is a cracking episode. Can't wait to get started. Here we go. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
I'm pretty excited about this episode, mate. I'm not going to lie, because you are a man after my own heart. You're calling in from Spain. You're close to Marbella.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so let's make an agreement now at the start of the podcast that we're not going to use this hour as a way of just beating down on the UK, because we're obviously fans of being anywhere but we'll keep our we'll keep our feelings to one side for now. But yeah, I wanted to have you on, Chris. Obviously, I know a little bit about you and what you've done and where you are and where you're going, but I wanted to have you on because I'm a big fan, understandably, of anybody who's kind of carved a life out for themselves outside of the UK. I know that's not for everybody. For us, obviously it is. It works for us. But what I like about you, at least from what it seems, is that you've created this life which for you is your best life, right? And that, for me, is what this podcast is all about. It's about inspiring people, showing people what's possible, showing people that regardless of the hand that you was dealt, there are ways and options and avenues and roads with a bit of determination, a bit of hard work, a bit of grit and determination. You can carve your own path, right?
Yeah.
And you've done that. So I'm interested to hear the story. I'm interested to share it with the world. I'm also interested because it's property related, right? You've done this through property, which is also inspiring. So let's get stuck in, Chris. Let's start with, and as soon as you start speaking, people are going to realize, where you're from. But tell us a little bit about where it began, where you're from. Tell us a little bit about your background. Let's get started with that.
Yeah, so, I'm from Glasgow, as you can probably tell.
Many Glaswegians in Marbella, just out of curiosity?
There is, actually.
Is there?
Yeah, there is. There's a really mixed bag here. So, I can't complain. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It gets tiring having to repeat myself sometimes.
Can you get your haggis though?
There is a couple of stores you can, yes, and then there's an Iceland here as well, so you get stuff from there. So we're okay.
Very authentic.
I can get my iron brew if I have to. But yeah,
your guy's blood is iron brew, right? It runs orange.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Just like my beard. So just in terms of my background, I'm from Glasgow. I was in the corporate world for a long time, for about 19 years. I was a project and program manager dealing with sort of UK contracts and stuff. It was great. I worked my way up, and then I sort of came a bit stagnant as such, and I was just starting to, I felt as if the more I was rising up in my career, the more it was taking parts away from me, from my soul and mentally and everything else. And I just sort of stopped and I stayed the same. So I started to look at alternatives. I've tried little businesses online, e-commerce stuff and bits and bobs just because I was wanting to learn. And then a property came up. I think I seen something on YouTube or I can't remember what I seen, but I started seeing people talking about this, and I thought this sounds really interesting. And I went to a property course, and started to, like most people do, or many people do, I started looking at different strategies. I mean, I had a rental property that just ticked away. Never thought about it. It was more by accident, really. That it's one of those ones I got it pre-crash, property crash. So I couldn't sell it because it was below the value and stuff. So I had to
It
hang
was
on.
upside down. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a new build in 2006. So So
Ooh.
anyway, it was a bit of a lesson learned, but I had to just hang on. So I was an accidental landlord as well, and yeah, and I learned about these new strategies. I just thought, okay, let's look at that. And Airbnb was in sort of SA was the strategy that I really liked the idea of. So
Let's just, Chris,
yeah.
let's just briefly, while we're at that stage. So,
Mhm.
so obviously, you purchased a new build in 2006. So we're a couple of years before the major crash of 2008. So you
Yeah.
probably bought almost near the top. And that's not your fault. A lot of people got caught out. If you're
Yeah.
not an economist or if you're not a property expert watching the 18-year cycles, right? There's a good chance that you and how many others got caught out. But
Exactly.
I'm more interested in what was it then that made you want to purchase property? What
No,
what
that
was
was a
it
home.
in your
That
head
was a
that
home.
oh, it was a
Yeah,
residential home that
that
you
was
lived in?
it was yeah, and it was only
Okay.
really a good few years later. I got a house. It was an apartment, a modern two-bed apartment,
Yeah.
and I moved into a house, so I had to sell that. Well, sorry, I couldn't sell it, so I had to keep it and then rent
Right.
it. So that was how I fell into being a landlord. So it wasn't an investment
Okay.
property.
Got
Um,
you.
it was really that, and it was only when I done the course, then I got another property and rented that out, and then I started to look at the Airbnb side, but also I was sourcing properties for investors in Glasgow because the market's it's a good market for high yielding investment properties, especially for people in London, who was my main market at that point in time for investors wanting me to source. So I've done a bit of everything, all the while I was still working in my job
Right.
as a project manager.
So at that time, you were still working, right?
Yeah.
You know that you want to get out your job. You know that you're not happy, you're not fulfilled, you're lacking certain things in your life, maybe
Mhm.
not enough time. And I know for sure, like a million percent, that there are so many people out there that are feeling the same way.
Yeah.
But the problem is the time, right? They're busy with the job, then they get home, they're cooking the dinner, then they're with the kids, then they're doing this and that and cutting the grass and washing the car. And there doesn't seem to be enough hours in the day to start to build that side hustle, right?
Yeah.
To slowly over time build something that you can start to transition out of your day job. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about how did that look for you? Did you, because you've got a family, right? You've got quite a
Yeah.
few,
Yeah. I've got a
you've got
boy. Yeah.
kids
I've
and
got a
stuff.
son. Yeah.
Did you have the family at that point, or
At that
was
point, I
you
did.
just like,
At that point, I did.
yeah,
I mean, it was one of those things. I mean, I was quite fortunate because my job as a project manager, I'm online. Um, and projects they sort of go up and down like peaks and troughs.
right,
So
hmm,
if you've got everything handled, then technically, you've got a lot more time to do things. Obviously, you don't tell your manager because they just give you
yeah,
more projects to do.
exactly,
So
yeah,
it's all about just trying to really manage your time and fit as much into the day as possible. But don't get me wrong, I was working later hours because sometimes I would have to do some admin stuff for my day job. I'd maybe do that in the evening because I could. So I was trying to just use up my whole day as much as possible. So I was using a lot of personal time, but I knew that I had to do something different. I just couldn't see myself waiting until retirement and just waiting for a pension that is less than what I was
that
earning.
may or may not come.
And
Yeah,
and it's one of those ones, and it's not going to be it's going to be worth a lot just now, but when I'm retired, and God knows what age that'll be, as you alluded to, so it's not going to be worth a lot.
exactly.
Yeah, so I just had to do something different, and I seen property as an avenue that might help me to do that.
Yeah, and it's great to hear that. So a couple of things that I immediately picked up on there that I just want to reflect back
Yeah,
is, you say that you was filling all of your available personal time with this side hustle, with this new venture, educating yourself,
Yeah.
pushing, learning, hustling, right?
Hmm.
So immediately there's a difference. That's someone who, in my eyes, wants to make the change, knows they need more, knows there's more to life, knows they can achieve more
Yeah.
than the job, right? And the play it safe game. So is it safe to say that you weren't spending, 4 to 6 hours every single evening laying on the couch watching Netflix at that point
No.
or scrolling TikTok?
You're correct
Yeah.
in saying I
And
wasn't doing that. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the difference, right? And I, without kind of, putting anyone down or saying anything bad about anyone, but I speak to people all the time. They're like, oh, I'm so unhappy. I'm in this dead end job, but I don't have the time,
Yeah.
and then you see them, or you talk to them. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just binging, Breaking Bad,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're like, dude, like
I
you
know.
got it. If you want to make the change, you got to make it happen.
Definitely. 100%. I fully agree with that.
You got to push for it.
Yeah.
So you got some education.
Yes, I did. Yeah. 2019 is when I done my, 2018, I think it was, I done my education in property,
2018.
something like that.
And did you have a clear, something else I want to know that I'm interested in, Chris, is, you've got this life now. You're living in Spain, you're living in Marbella, you've got your business, you've got your family, you're waking up with the sun on your face every day. I'm sure it's not all perfect, right? But I would imagine, and I know because I spend a lot of time in Mallorca as well, I believe life's just better when the sun's out, right? You can do so
Definitely.
much more.
Yeah.
Did you have, when you started on this, this side business, this new journey, did you have a really clear idea then, like a clear vision of like where you wanted to go, or was this just kind of
No.
a road that just kind of
Yeah,
unraveled
I never knew. I
naturally?
never
Or
knew, to be honest. I mean, I've always. I mean, God, when I was a lot younger, I was trying to immigrate to Australia, and I had a job lined up, but the government changed, and this type of job I was going to go for, the funding get pulled. So I was always wanting to move somewhere else, and I always knew that the UK probably wasn't where my heart was. I loved being abroad. I loved being in the sun. So I knew I was wanting to do that, but in terms of the journey that I had taken around property, I never put the two together. That I never imagined that it would have allowed me to do this. So I never really seen that. All I was wanting to do was to replace my salary and not be really worried about a job that I never enjoyed at the end. I mean, it was a great job. People would kill to have a job like that. But
Mhm.
I just lost my passion for a good few years. So I never knew I'd be coming here now. I never knew I'd be over here selling real estate, selling luxury villas, and I
Mhm.
never knew that would be where I ended up. But I am here, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I can't wait to get to that part where we can start talking about that part of your life where you are now, because
Yeah.
it excites me. But the reason I asked you that was because we're quite, with our mentees that we work with,
Yep.
when they come on board, the first thing that we do is we sit down and we put together and this isn't new stuff, right? This is what every good mentor, coach, education program should be asking you.
Yeah.
What do you want, right? Where do you want to be, and how long do you want to take to get there, right?
Yeah.
And you start to build these stepping stones, this really clear road that you can start to travel.
Yep.
And I believe that if you have that, you didn't do that, but you've still reached your end goal, and that's
Yeah.
amazing, and that shows that anything's possible, right?
Hmm.
I do believe that, like you said, somewhere in there in your mind, you was like, I don't know what I want, but I know that it's not this. I
Yeah.
know that I need
Yeah.
more in
Exactly.
some way, right? But I do believe that if you sit down and you really, because funnily enough, we had a conversation today with someone that was interested in joining our program, and we said, "What are you looking to do?" Well, I want 5 SA units, and we were like, "Okay, why?"
Why? Of course.
Well, make some more money. Okay, well, how much? I don't know, like 5's just a nice number. And we hear this all the time, it's always either 5 or it's 10. And it's the same stuff that's kind of regurgitated all the
Yeah.
time. But if you have like a laser focused idea, you're
Mhm.
like, okay, I need X, I
Yeah.
want it by Y. And when I've got that, I want to be there.
Yeah.
Right. Then you can start to implement the steps.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you didn't know where you wanted to go. You knew you wanted a bit more. I think most people are in that boat, right?
Yep.
There's not many people that are waking up like bouncing out of bed, like I've got everything I need. There's nothing else that I want. Everybody wants a bit more. So what happened after that? You started to get some traction in the business.
I mean, at that point, I started just to focus, and I never had really any money because I had a good salary, but it's the usual, right? You get sometimes when you're on salary, you're
The more you earn, the more you spend.
keeping up with the Joneses, yeah. So it was all that sort of stuff, living in a suburbia area with all the new builds. So
buy a new lawnmower.
exactly. So that was kind of where I was at. So I thought, right, I need to get money. So I'd done property sourcing. So I started to source properties with investors in London, as I mentioned. And also I had that rental property that accidental. So as I learnt about serviced accommodation at the training, I thought, well, why not just try that out? I heard about rent to rent, which which is where I sort of went, but I thought, well, I've got one there. I don't know what I'm doing. I've got an idea for training. Let's just try it. Because worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, I can just rent it anyway. It's
Just
normal.
revert back, yeah.
Yeah, so I started to do that as well. Learnt the hard way.
And that property was where, in Glasgow?
In
Or?
Glasgow, yeah, that was the one in Glasgow. So that was basically where
Okay.
I lived for years, and I had to rent it because I couldn't afford to sell it at the point in time because the market, yeah, it was just too expensive. The price I paid
So
for it.
what kind of because we obviously teach to, who's your market, right?
Yep,
Who's your demographic? Is it corporates,
it
contractors,
was mainly
family
contractors.
relocations, whatever?
Yep,
And then you go out and you find the property to match your demographic, but you already had the property,
yeah,
so it was kind of naturally just
it was.
contractors.
It
It
was
was a good
sitting,
location
yeah,
for
and
that.
it was we just I had just been given a refurb, luckily, because weirdly it got flooded from upstairs badly.
Hmm.
So we got
Hmm.
insurance. So we refurbed it. I had it all
Nice.
I
Yeah.
got stagers in. We got it all staged with lovely furniture, really high end, really modern. And it was a modern property anyway. So we just decided that let's just SA it. Contractors, there's a lot of work going on in that area. You're not
Yeah.
far from the ship builders, and they're doing loads of regeneration work there next to hospitals. So good area, good for contractors. And yeah, it was a lot of mistakes were made, a lot of learning, but I was able to really go into the detail of things. And also I managed it myself at that point, and I managed the guest communications, managed organising the cleaners, and all of that stuff that was involved in it, dealing with any issues. So it was a really good,
What a great way to
yeah,
do it with your own property, right?
yeah,
If you're in that fortunate position,
yeah,
it's almost like a try before you buy,
hmm,
like what's the worst that can happen? You've got the small mortgage payments,
yep.
and you give it your best shot, and you can kind of learn as you go.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so that was how I started.
Back then, Chris, did you need because I think now in Scotland you need a license, right?
Yeah,
For to do
at that
service
point,
accommodation.
at that point, we never.
You didn't. So
Yeah, just the
you
same
could
as
just
England.
get a. Okay, nice.
Yeah,
So obviously that worked. So you kind of dipped your beak, with your own property.
yep,
Probably got a bit of a taste for it, right? You're
yeah,
like, oh, this is nice. We're making a hell of a lot more than running it as a buy to
yep,
let.
yep.
But you was doing sourcing at the same time, was
I
you?
was doing sourcing at the same time for investors. Yeah, so I was doing that also, which was tight. Which
So
was
you were sourcing remotely while living in Glasgow. You were sourcing in London.
I was sourcing. No, I was sourcing in Glasgow for investors in
Oh, you were
London.
sourcing in Glasgow. Oh, got you.
Yeah, yeah, because
Okay.
obviously, the price of a property in Glasgow, and you're getting good yields, about 10% yields thereabouts.
Okay.
And obviously the prices are so much cheaper than in London. The mortgage, a deposit for a house in London, you'll be able to buy a property outright in Glasgow and get good passive
Right.
income. So that was basically what I was doing. And for me, I was learning as well at the same time,
Yep.
learning um, about what makes a good property, the costs, prices for refurb. I was managing refurbs and stuff because I'm a project manager, right? That's my trade. So I was able to use that skill and transfer that onto this
Yeah.
quite well.
You had a pretty good a pretty good head start with those skills that you already had.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Something else, Chris, that I'm interested in. which I think is so, so important when you are trying to change the direction of your life. You know, we all talk about, you know, surround yourself by positive people, your network's your net worth, you
Yeah,
know, surround yourself by people who are on the same journey, who are all trying to lift each other up and better themselves and change their lives. With your, and, you know, speak about it if you're comfortable, but with your partner and your family situation, were they very supportive of your, you know, trying to build this on the side and get the family into
yeah.
a different track? How
Not
did that work? How
not
did that go?
really. I mean, it was difficult because of my time, So I was, personally, I just wasn't given enough time to the family side. But
Right.
I just knew that if I kept doing what I was doing, I'd be really miserable, and it's just not, And if you're miserable, it comes off to with other people,
Hmm.
especially
Hmm.
with those that you love. So yeah, it was difficult, I must admit, in that respect. But I had to do it because I knew
It's
that I need to do something different with my life. Because at the end of the day, it's my life as well, and I only live once. So I need to make sure that
absolutely,
I
this ain't no
enjoy it.
dress rehearsal.
Exactly, yeah. So I had to
No
be pretty
second goes.
selfish at
Yeah.
that point, just because I knew what I was capable of, and I knew what my skills were being wasted at that point in time.
I think it's one of the number one things that can hold you back
Yeah,
is, and I'm saying this from experience, right? I've been, you know, recently in a long-term relationship where I felt, and I'm believe me, I'm not comparing this to your situation. This is my own personal
yeah, of course.
experience, but you know, I felt smothered. Like anytime I, you know, the phone rang or a message came in that I needed to answer quickly, maybe when we was in a, you know, relaxed environment at dinner, or you know, I felt like I couldn't,
Mm.
you know, and I needed to.
Yeah,
And I needed to answer that phone. I needed to be on that call. I needed to answer that message. I needed to be available. And if you're not with someone who's like, oh, you know, whatever you need, you know, I understand. I know why you're doing it. You're doing it for us. Whatever you need, you've got my support. If you don't have that, and you've got the, you know, you've got the opposite. You've got the daggers. You know, you've got the, you know, the atmosphere that it can create, right? When
yeah,
you're not going in the same direction, when you're pulling in different directions, that in itself can keep you tied,
yeah,
right, into your current situation. So I would just, and I just speak about that because you know, I've been there, and I know 100% that there will be someone out there listening to this going, "Yep, that's me. Like I'm desperate to get out of this hole, but I don't have the support of my partner." And I guess
yeah.
the hard truth of it is, and I think that you came out the other side, right? You're still with the same. Okay, maybe not. Okay, but I was going to say, I would say to anyone who's in that position, you know, and they're scared or they don't feel supported, to really sit and think.
Yeah,
If you want to change, you need to be with someone who's going to have your back.
yeah. It's true. That is true.
It's absolutely everything. Okay, so all right, so you're doing your sourcing, you're dipping your feet in the SA world.
Yeah,
Have you kind of decided now that like service accommodation is for you? That's kind of
yeah,
the strategy that you're going to go with, or
yeah.
did you
That
want
was
to
it.
go more sourcing?
Yeah, no, I mean the sourcing for me was just too time consuming. Um, the money wasn't. I don't think the money was great because unless I was wanting to really build it up, and you see a lot of sourcers there that'll. For me, I was seeing a lot of sourcers that were just trying to flog deals all the time. Um, and I just didn't like to work that way. But that's the way you need to do that in order to have a successful sourcing business. But for me, I was more just doing one-on-one with someone and then trying to find them a
Right.
property that met their needs. But again, it's only me, so it's hard to grow that. So, but that was what I felt comfortable doing. So, but then I just realised that with SA or service accommodation, I can get into that. I understood the processes, and I could see there to be growth. And I never really had the money as such at that point, and that's why I decided rent to rent might be a good option for me.
Okay. So did you decide to grow your portfolio in Glasgow,
Yeah, that's right, because I knew
close to home?
Glasgow. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah, perfect.
exactly, and I could actually go and see it and deal with getting it furnished and everything else. So yeah, that's what I done at the start. Was decided to grow it in Glasgow.
Yeah, that's great, and that's the smart thing to do, right? And we're always beating the drum about that. You know, if you're gonna get into SA, I don't care what anyone says. You know, these gurus that you see floating around on social saying, "Oh, I've got one in Dubai, one in
Mm.
Bali, one in," no. You know, if you want to do it right, you need to be close enough to where you're based so
Yeah.
that you can handle management, handle quality control, right? Deal
Yep.
with guests when stuff comes up, regardless of the teams and the systems. You're always going to need to get to your property because the buck stops with you. So,
Yeah.
so how did that business look? How did it grow? Did you use finance? Did you part JV with people, or did you kind of do it all yourself?
I'd done it all myself. At the start, I'd done it all myself. So, I would use some of the money that I was getting from the apartment that I had, and I would just build that up, and then I would put it in. So I would put that into one of the properties. It's also from the stuff I was doing with the sourcing as well. So that helped me get my next one, helped me to pay for, the deposit, the rent, and the furniture. So yeah, that
Yeah,
allowed me to do that with that one. And I never used any sources. I went to a letting agent who I became, well, now I'm friends with. We've been
yeah,
working with each other for a few years now. Um, and he helped me to get my first, my second property at that point in time. But my first one that I went out to get as a rent to rent, he helped me get that as well. And
amazing.
yeah,
It's the golden door, really, isn't it? You know, if you can build, so many people, understandably, especially now, because it's harder, it's busier, but trying to source properties is tough.
mm,
And we always say, if you can just get that one agent on side,
yeah,
it can be an absolute game changer because you get one over the line, you prove yourself,
yeah,
right? You do what you say, and why wouldn't they pass you more?
exactly. I mean, don't get, I didn't just walk in and magically get one. I mean, that took me a lot of rejections from people, a lot of what do you mean? It's subletting and blah, all that stuff that
Yeah,
you get. Um,
yeah,
but it's one of those things you need to just keep going and keep going. And the more you do it, the better you get in that discussion because you might make the first one, you might stutter a bit, you might not answer it the way you should, but you learn off that the more you do it, and it's practice. And I had to build up to that, and then I had all the answers to obviously give the one that accepted it. So from there it's been great. And I had to also, because you mentioned the licensing laws, I knew that was coming. So I only looked at houses, no apartments, only houses after that. So that was my focus. So the first one I got was a 5 bed, a 5 bed
oh,
house.
nice.
Yeah, that was the very first one. And so, go big or go home. So I just decided to go big. Yeah,
It's the way to do it. You get those nice long bookings, contractor bookings.
exactly, exactly. And then the next one, I got a couple more, and then I got offered a 10 bed in Glasgow, a 10 bed detached
That's,
Victorian property. And
wow.
yeah, I mean, the rent was quite high compared to what I was used to. Nothing compared to London, but it was still high for Glasgow. And I had to use JV finance for that. So I went out, I got a loan from someone I reached out on Facebook, and it was actually someone I went on the property course with a good few years before who was following me in my journey. So he gave me a loan. That helped me to kit out all the house. I got in there, I got massive oak pool tables in, I got pianos in, all sorts of
Wow.
stuff, proper, like all the Scottish theme, tartan, and I get stuff from a local artist. So a proper, it's lovely. Um,
So was this a high end? Was it like
really,
a
really hot.
more
Yeah,
family, like a holiday let thing?
yeah. It's a holiday let. I mean, it does a bit of a mixed bag. We get a lot of people from all over the world coming who are coming to Glasgow. Some of them stop in Edinburgh, then stop in Glasgow. It's only 1 hour difference. So we get a lot of that in the summer, but through the winter we get a lot of contractors because there's massive car parking spaces at the back and it's part of the house. So it's
Perfect.
good for vans and stuff. There's cameras round the outside of the property. Um, so it helps with the security. And also it's got a pool table, plenty of space in it,
Yeah,
so they
it's
can relax when they're working. So and it's
perfect.
a cost saving. I mean, we don't charge a massive amount of money for it. So for a contractor, it's absolutely perfect, and it's still profitable, even if we reduce the costs, to get the contractors in.
So you brushed over something quite casually a couple of minutes back about how you brought in an investor, right,
Yeah,
to help you finance that, and it was someone who was lurking in the shadows,
yep.
following your journey, watching your updates, watching your posts, seeing what you was up to, and that is absolute gold because and it's something that we are relentless about with our mentees about screaming from the rooftops
Yep.
everything that you do, right? The good, the
Oh,
bad, the
everything.
ugly, the wins, the failures. Tell the world because there will be, no matter how small you are, where you've started, where you are, there will be someone out there, guaranteed it, who is watching your every single step. They've got a few quid in their pocket
Yeah,
and they're waiting for the moment to pick up the phone or send that message and say, I want to do something with you. I'm inspired by you. I like what you're doing. I like how you come across. I resonate with your journey.
yep.
I want to get involved. So that's absolutely epic. So was there any nerves around that, around taking someone's money? And was it a loan or was it a JV?
A
What was the
loan,
structure of
purely
it?
a loan. It was only a 6 month
Okay.
loan. So, it was a 6 month loan. It was about, I can't even remember the amount it was, to be honest, but decent, obviously it was decent returns that they were getting. But for me, it made sense to give that. Obviously, they're taking a risk. There's no security as such in that because it's such a small loan, but they believed in me. And yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I paid it back bang on time, actually just before the time. So
Yeah.
everything went well with that. Um, yeah, and I'm glad we done that. He actually earlier in the year he's also given me another loan again for another one that I took on. But we can go
Yeah.
into that as well.
Why wouldn't they? I mean, and there are so many people who, they go to these property events, they go to the training events, they go to the seminars, they have all the intentions,
Yep,
but it just, for whatever reason, it just never quite starts, right? Maybe they've got a good job. They're not in a position where they're feeling the pinch. Their back's not up against the wall enough. It's just a little bit too much hard work. So
yep,
they don't get started themselves, but they still want a little taste of it, right? Because it's
exactly.
exciting. It's nice to say I'm in property, but I'm not really having to do anything. So they're your perfect JV or investor
Yeah, of
partners. And there are thousands of those guys
course
out
there
there.
is.
So that's where your networking comes in, getting busy, getting out there, meeting people, shaking hands, having conversations, telling everyone what you're doing. Because again, so many people are going to be listening to this. And this is what I'm thinking when I'm asking these questions or reflecting this stuff. So many people are sitting at home listening to you, and it's the typical, well, it's okay for you, Chris, right? I don't have the money,
Yeah,
you know, lucky you. But it's like, no, not lucky me. First of all, you know, I got here through hard work, right?
yeah,
Putting in the time in the evenings, not choosing not to watch Netflix, but to build my side hustle.
hmm,
And then putting yourself out there, letting the world know what you're doing, being consistent with your updates, with your socials,
yep,
being active, getting out there. You found the money, right? The
yeah,
money, you attracted the
of
money.
course.
So it's all about making shit happening, taking action, being proactive, being confident, and saying, like you said at the beginning, I've got one life, right?
Yeah,
One chance, one opportunity, and I'm not going to spend it in a job that doesn't serve me, that isn't going anywhere.
exactly, exactly.
So really, really powerful stuff. So yeah, take that on board, guys. If you're listening, thinking, well, I don't have any money. The money's there. If you find the deal, there will be people fighting over you to invest.
Yeah,
That's a given.
I agree.
So, okay, cool. So sounds like the SA journey is going pretty well. I'm interested to know, like, at what point, at what size are you like, okay, this could potentially, if I build teams, if I build systems, I've got channel managers, I've got automation here, potentially this could be like a vehicle to get me maybe out of the UK. When did you start having those thoughts?
Well, I mean, so I got a little bit. So I started that at the start, and then what I done after it is I realised that rather than me getting a team, I knew good management agents. Um,
Yep.
so ultimately, I used their service. Obviously, I could be making more money if I'd done it myself,
Yep.
but I decided to go
It
down that.
works.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It
It
it,
works for you.
it does work. I have changed a couple of them. Don't get me wrong. It's been trial and error. But right now, I'm happy with the mix that I have. Um, so yeah, so it's been. it's been a good learning curve that way. And but it's what's been really helpful is that I know what I'm talking about because I've done it myself.
Yes.
So I know how
Yes.
to audit them. I know the right questions to ask. I'll still go back and forth and do spot checks because I go back to Glasgow every 6 weeks or something. So I'm always doing those checks anyway. And yeah, and I know I've got the right level of monitoring in there that I know when stuff's
Yep.
not happening. Um, I've got access to all the reviews as well and the communications that go on Airbnb and the back end. So I've kept that just because I need to know what's been said. I need to know the general feeling about the properties because that comes out in people's messages, not necessarily the reviews, but the actual messages they're sending um, during their stay and before their stay.
Yeah, absolutely huge. And I would be, excuse me, I would be very uh, skeptical and concerned about anyone. And you see the posts, right? You see the posts of people saying, "Hey, I'm looking for an Airbnb property." So they're looking for a sourcer. They don't know anything about it. They just think if I can just find one and give it to them, they can manage it, and then all this money will pour in, and I can go and lay on the beach somewhere. And unless you have a very good understanding of the business,
Yep,
you need to know enough to be able to quite simply kick ass if you need to,
yeah,
right? To say, where's my occupancy levels? Why am I getting consistently not getting top reviews? you know
yeah,
why am I paying X for my linens when it should be Y?
yep,
You need to have enough education
of course.
to be able to question management companies, because at the end of the day, if you don't get booked, it's no skin off their nose, right?
No,
It's you're the one who's paying the bills. So I've got nothing against management companies, but like you said, you've got to know enough to
oh, you do.
make them know, look, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, 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 definitely. I fully agree. Yeah, it's just as I say, it did take time. Trial and error. I did try a couple. They weren't quite right for what I wanted,
Yeah.
and I've moved about, and I've done that, got other ones in
Yeah.
because I knew once I started to see it and see what it could achieve for my life, and I knew I was going to be moving away. I didn't want to be dealing with sort of issues while I was here as such,
Hmm.
like just general
Hmm.
stuff. So I knew I felt as if I wanted to get a management company in,
Yeah.
just to support me in that and deal with the actual the regular communications, as well.
So what's the timeline looking like, Chris, from your first when you dipped your feet with the trial in the SA in your own property,
Hmm.
to then being at a point where you're talking to management companies, you've raised investor finance, you've built your portfolio, and now what's the timeline to getting out of your corporate job? How long did that take?
I mean, I had the first one I had. I never really built it up for ages. I probably had that for about a year,
Hmm.
and then I got in 2020. Um, I was about to take my first rent to rent on because I was doing sourcing between then. That was my focus at
Yeah.
that point. And then COVID hit, so I decided not to take that. I was about to take a contract, my first Airbnb, first rent to rent, sorry, and I decided to wait. I wish I never, but I did. So it probably wasn't until later in the summertime um, of 2020 that I got the first the 5 bed that I mentioned to you. So that was probably middle of 2020, or yeah, I took that first one on. So basically from 2020 to maybe 2 years, something like that, it took me to get to a point
Okay.
to change my salary to replace my
I
salary.
would
Sorry.
Well, that's pretty amazing. That is a short period of time,
Yeah.
because presumably you was in a, like you said, you was in a decent job, right,
Yeah. Oh
with a
yeah.
decent
Yeah. Yeah.
income,
High salary.
and you've replaced that in 2 years.
2 years.
Wow.
2 years.
If that's not if that's not inspiring to people at home, then I don't know what is, to show what's possible. And you know, we don't have to get into the details of it, but I could tell by the face that you pulled earlier when I asked you about your relationship, it sounds like you probably had to make some hard decisions
Yeah. I
to
did.
choose to put yourself first,
Yeah.
right? So again, there's all these there's all these, and I'm just reflecting back to you, hearing your story. these decisions and the work and the commitment and the dedication and making the changes, the hard changes when you needed to get to where you are today.
Yeah.
And it's so important that people take that on board and listen to that, because none of this shit comes easy, right? There is not a single person who's self-made who's had someone knock on the door and go, here you go, do ABC and it'll all go nice and smoothly. You've got to go through the mincer a few times, right, and come out the other end to smell the roses.
That's
So I would just kind of reflecting that back. But that's amazing. 2 years. That's very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive. And also, Chris, would you say something else that I'm kind of picking up on, even though 2 years is an incredible short period of time, but it sounds like initially you was like, maybe had the bit of the shiny penny syndrome. You're like, oh, should I be doing sourcing?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll play a bit on SA. Would you say that if you had like a bit more focus and you was on one road, like maybe you would have got there even quicker?
Oh, definitely. Definitely would. I mean, it might have taken 2 years still, but maybe, if I never went to do the sourcing. So as I said, I started about 2019 with my first Airbnb with my own property at that time. And then I started doing sourcing at the side of it.
Right.
So if I never done sourcing,
Yeah.
it might have still taken 2 years. But I would have been a lot earlier. It wouldn't have been as late in the process. So I would have been a bit younger, 2 years younger, basically, if I'd done that.
Right.
But I do think that, in terms of when I made the decision, it took 2 years. When I made the decision, I put my all into it, and that was my primary focus for those couple of years, because I knew that I could see it getting to be the thing that was going to replace my salary. So that was why I gave it that focus.
Wow, that is amazing. And what was I just going to ask then? I had a really important question that's just completely blanked on me. But okay, so that's what I was going to ask. Tell me about the day when you handed in your notice in your corporate job. How did it feel? How was the lead up to it? And what did it feel like when you walked out the office for the last day?
Well,
You was nervous.
here's the thing. So I could have probably left a bit earlier and handed my notice in, but because I was there for so long, I was waiting for a redundancy to come through.
Right.
Because why wouldn't I? It would, be a year's salary. So I
Yep.
was kind of holding off for that. I seen the way the business was starting to go, and I knew that it was going to be coming soon. Just because they were moving the offices. It was a massive UK company that I worked for, offices all over the UK, but they were downsizing their offices, and so Glasgow was an office that my line of business was moving out of. So I knew if I stayed in that job that I would eventually get my redundancy offer. And yeah, I got offered it. And at that point, I knew where my salary was, where my Airbnbs were going. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. But I had to see the job out. So I had to see the job out. I found out about that in March, one of the years, a couple of years ago, and but I had to stay on until the end of that year in December. So that was a really difficult year for me because I knew that my heart wasn't in it. I knew I was leaving, and I knew that I was okay
Yep.
money wise at that point as well. But I had to see it out because it's a redundancy payment. Why wouldn't I take that? Um, so that was kind of it. But in terms of the feeling for leaving, I felt great because I knew that I was covered. I knew that I had that income coming in. So it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here thinking, like, if you hadn't have had this drive leading up to that point,
Mm.
where would you have been and how would you have felt if you had nothing else going on, no other plans? Because that's what people do, right? They're in the job, they get that, they've been there for a little bit, they start to get comfortable, and people, for whatever reason, think that that's it for them, right?
Yeah,
The company's going to look after them, they're going to cruise through life, nice pension at the end of it, and then multiple things can happen, right? You can get made redundant, you can get ill, right?
yeah,
Things can change, traumas can happen, bad shit can happen, and overnight all of that comfort goes away. Happened to me. That's the exact reason why I'm here right now. It's the
Yeah.
exact same thing happened to me. So where do you think you would have been if you hadn't have made preparations for that time? Would it have been a bit scary getting that redundancy package, or?
It probably, yeah, I mean, it would have been. I mean, obviously, where my mind's, because I've got this mindset, I would have had to have done something in a year. Um, I don't know quite what I would have done. Maybe I would have freelanced in my job that I was doing
Mhm.
just to try and get some income to come in while while I would try and build something up. Um, but I don't know what I would have done, to be honest, if I never had this income coming in. But I do know that I would have really worked my arse off that first year. Having that support for a year for my salary, being there. But I would have had to have done something. I wouldn't have wanted to be just get another job full time, but maybe something just to get a little bit of money in. Plus, I've got that, so I could
Yeah.
use that for investing.
Yeah.
But I would maybe do that with it. That's probably what the plan would have been. But I would have,
Yeah.
I would have had a bit more time in my hands, maybe as well, just to really focus on phoning agents, phoning, people on Facebook and open rent and all
Mm.
these things, just to try and get their properties and work with them.
It's not a bad way to do it. If believe me, I'm not an advocate for, do your training, leave your job, jump in, both feet. But if you're in a position where you've got a cushion,
Yeah,
right, and you've got enough money behind you to give yourself, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, right, of a safety net, and
yeah,
you can go, okay, because that can almost be a driver, right? You've got a timeline now. I've got 12 months to make shit happen,
yeah,
right? So that is what's going to get you up. And when things don't work, and when things get, you get the rejections every single day, you're like, well, I don't have a choice. I got to go. I got to go. I got
exactly.
to go. Right. So that's also another way of doing it, which is kind of somewhat about where you was, but it highlights the importance of getting realizing that you've got to always be preparing for what's coming next,
Yeah,
because we never truly know, right? And if you're just getting comfortable and you're spending, right, everything that you're earning, you're buying all the materialistic shit, you're not investing in anything else on the side
yeah,
for when stuff changes, that's when you can really find yourself in a hard place.
yeah, I agree.
So yeah, just another testament to you, really, for realizing that and being prepared. So, all right. So you're out your job. The properties are doing great. The SA world's booming. You've replaced your income. You got a nice fat redundancy check.
Mhm.
What did you do? Did you go out and buy a Porsche and a few suits and a couple of Rolexes, or did you?
No,
What did you do next?
at that point, I put into another SA, another rent to SA. I put a chunk of it into a 5 bed in London. Um,
Wow, big
yeah,
step.
yeah. I just thought, well, because I knew at that point, though, when I was going to go to Spain, and I thought, well, Glasgow. I know Glasgow, right? But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of a flight from Malaga to London or a flight to Glasgow. It's the same. It's actually less of a flight to
Yeah.
London than Glasgow. So that was where my mind was starting to go a little bit. And I just started
What year was that?
two years ago now, I think. Yeah, 2 years ago. I've had
Oh,
it for
so
the
post Brexit.
yeah, yeah. That's right. 2 years ago, I took that on. Yeah, but I was able to go. I visited it. I met the landlord. I got a flight over. Met the landlord. He was happy, and we took it from there. Then I got a staging company in. Furnished it, kitted it all out, and everything else to the style I liked. And that
Yeah.
was it. Me being a project manager, I managed them. I got a pool table in. I like the pool tables with the oak,
Yeah.
the dining slash pool table thing. Got that in.
Sounds like you got a bit of a thing for pool
I
tables
do,
and
I
oak.
do. I think it looks good for the photographs. It differentiates you a little bit as well.
Absolutely.
But again, that was a big 5 bed house, as well in
How did
London.
you sort? How did you source that in
Face,
London when you was in
face,
Glasgow?
Facebook, Facebook
Nice.
Marketplace.
Direct to
Yeah,
landlord. Yeah.
direct to landlord. And he said that he's heard this. He said loads of people coming to him about this, but for some reason they liked me, and he felt comfortable with me and my experience. But it helped that I was able to show him properties that I had, I think, as well. Um, But again, it doesn't. But again, it's one of those things, isn't it? You've still got to start from somewhere. Um, but
Absolutely.
yeah, it just helped me to get to him anyway. So I took money went into that. Money went into paying off some bills and stuff that I had. But again, I wasn't really dependent on that money at that point in time because I had income coming through anyway, so I could spend it, but I was wanting to invest it, which is what I done.
Yeah, another smart move. There's all these like little ticks going in the boxes of, and it's true though. I'm just reflecting it back. It's like made this decision, made that decision, made that decision. There's no, and how many other people would have gone, fuck yeah, nice big redundancy check. Let's go on a 12-month cruise.
Yeah,
Playing the short game
yeah,
instead of going no. Let's put this money to work. Let's make it sweat so it pays for a lifestyle long term,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Which is incredible. So and something else that I just want to pick apart a little bit. You said that you got in touch with the landlord through Facebook. There was lots of people going after this property, nice property, 5-bed in London. That's a big deal, right?
Yeah,
A lot of people would have been jumping all over that. He chose you because of something that he saw in you, the way
yeah,
you was communicating,
that's
the
right.
relationship that you built, the touch points that you had, the way that you spoke, the way that you communicate, the way that you, spoke confidently about what you was doing, right? That put his
Yep.
mind at ease, broke down the trust issues. And that is huge as well. I just did an episode with Robert McFun, who's an expert in communication,
Okay.
right? And it was a really interesting episode about you know the importance of that in every part of life, whether it's relationships, whether it's family, whether it's business, meetings, whatever. It's paramount. It's the foundation of everything that we do day to day.
Yep.
And you know, and again, one of our mentees, very similar thing. Property came up in London, where her gold mine area is. The landlord, from a previous conversation she'd had with her going back about 3 months now, when the opportunity came up, when the time was right for her, because of that previous work that this particular person had put in, even though at that point it didn't quite work, 3 months down the road, stuff's changed.
Hmm.
She picks up the phone, calls our mentee, and says, my situation's changed. Would you like to take on the property? There was multiple other hosts, providers going after this property in central London.
Yeah,
But because of the relationship that she had with her, right, that she'd put in the time and effort to create, the
that's
phone
good.
rang and she was offered the property, right? And that's the same thing that happened with you. And that is huge, right? That
Yeah.
doesn't just happen. That's something that comes with time and experience and the knowledge to listen,
Hmm.
let people speak, right? Listen to their pain points. And then when they're ready, when you've got that information, then you can come back and answer their concerns.
Yeah, that's right. And it took that experience and time to get to that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
My very first call to a landlord, I was stuttering and and making
And
mistakes and
shaking.
yeah, but
Yeah.
you need to go through that pain. You don't just come out and be immediately. Some people are, but it took me a little while to get myself to that level in understanding.
So, Chris, I'm just wary of the time here. This is there's a lot of juicy stuff here. I could talk for a while, but let's move into good old España.
Yep.
You're in your budgie smugglers. On the sunbed sipping pina coladas, and all
Oh
this money's
yeah,
pouring in.
yeah,
How did so tell us a little bit about that. Um, when did it happen? How did it happen
yep.
post Brexit? I thought you'd been there for a while, like
No,
good five years or so.
no,
So how did that happen? I'm going through the visa process now, to be in Mallorca, and it's tough,
yeah.
like it's difficult. So how did that look? When did you get there? Why did you choose Marbella, and how did you get to get your visa?
Well, everything kind of happened randomly, really. I mean, ultimately, we mentioned about with my ex and things not really working out. Um, so that finished a couple of three years ago, something like that. 2 years ago, 2 years ago, can't remember. Um, but ultimately, I thought, okay, I need to do something different. And I was not living in the house. I was living with a friend. Um, and I was trying to look for apartments to stay in and stuff, but I just thought, I just don't want to live here. I'm just going to places and seeing them, and I thought, it's not the life I want. So I just Googled the hottest apartments. I was looking at Dubai, and I was looking at Spain. I thought, no, I don't want to go too far out. So I looked at, and I went on to Spain, and I just typed hottest part of Spain, and then Costa del Sol came up.
Literally, that's how you chose. That is brilliant.
And then I went over. But before that, I thought, right, I don't want to buy a bike, but I was going to go over for a month. So I was going to go over for a month, and I thought I'll just go into Facebook Marketplace and buy a bike off somebody. And the guy I was going to buy it off it turned out it was the same street as my Airbnb that I was going to stay in there. So I met him. He was in property. He was a realtor in property. And the two of us really just got chatting. He's a Swedish guy with loads in common. He's an older guy. He seen my enthusiasm and everything else, and he was like, "Well, if you leave, if you're leaving BT soon," because at that point I was about to leave BT. He said, you can maybe look at the UK side." He was focused on the Swedish side, and that was kind of that. I thought, why not? Let's just go for it. So I was I was visiting, I was going back and forward, just learning more about the area, learning about the property prices, the market, everything else. I was over all the time at that point. And then basically I just came over permanently and started to, so I was more of a partner with him. I'm freelance as such, so, but I was able to go in quickly, and we started to build the website out to be British because it was all Swedish at that point in time.
Right.
So that was kind of how it all happened, very randomly. And but again, I think when you put yourself out there, you attract things, and that's basically it. It just everything sort of happened, and yeah, and now I'm here.
Almost sounds like it was meant to be.
Yeah,
And the other thing that just slaps me in the face is, you know, the saying might be a bit cliche, but how adversity brings opportunity,
yeah,
right? You were, excuse me, you was in a hard place in the UK,
mhm,
out the back of a long-term relationship,
yeah,
looking at your options, and you're like, this is the time, you know.
yeah,
It's like the red and the blue pill and the red pill, right? Do you want to take on a little one bed apartment in Glasgow in the rain
hmm,
and be depressed and wallow around and look for another job or do whatever? Or do you want to take that opportunity and say, this is my chance
yeah,
to turn a shit situation into what could potentially be the best years of my life?
exactly. Yeah, that's what I done.
And you took it.
Yeah,
So what's the, tell me a little bit. I mean, I kind of know, no, I'm here.
yeah,
But tell our listeners, I could spend another 6 hours right now talking about all of the benefits that we see living in Spain, and the life and the society and the culture and the tradition, and how it's so patriotic. And
yeah,
I love it. I love it how the Spanish are like, I don't care who you are, where you've come from, this is Spain,
yeah,
and you will adapt and you will take on our culture and our traditions. And I love that about them. So tell me about, or tell everyone, what's your day-to-day life like?
yeah. I mean,
So you're selling big villas to Brits, like
everywhere.
investors, or
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm selling villas or penthouses or it's all new builds mainly.
okay.
I do sell resales. So really, I'm working for myself. I'm trying to build my name out here, which I'm starting to really do. I'm meeting with a lot of good people. I collaborate with different agencies as well, and ultimately my job is to represent the buyer. So I'm looking, I've got people from the UK. I'm meeting with somebody on Monday who's Swedish. So meeting with
Hmm.
him. On Tuesday, I've got other clients as well. So basically, I fully use social media to get my name out there, and Google ads, Facebook ads, and everything else. I'm spending quite a bit on that, and I'm bringing people in who are looking for a property. If they use my service, it's free. It's free to them. They don't pay for me. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like property sourcing, what I was doing a way
I
back.
was going to say the sourcing part never
It,
left. You
it,
just kind
ex-
of molded it a little
it's
bit.
molded it, but instead of the buyer paying for me, it's the seller that's paying for me,
Yeah.
or the developers that I work with. So it's taken me a good while there was probably about a year, maybe 10 months where I never made a penny doing
Yeah.
this. It was all about
You're
getting my
just
name,
building your brand,
building that up, building the
building
social
authority.
media, everything. It
Yeah.
took ages to build that because nobody's going to just go, there's Chris,
Yeah.
let's buy a €3 million villa
Yeah.
off him, right? So you had to build that up. So I had to really work hard and get my name out there. I'm always networking over here. I'm always in social media. I've just started a podcast as well, all about Costa del
Yeah.
Sol, and it's not about all about property. It's about what do you need to know. So things about visas. I've got visa specialists on. I've got people talking about the golf clubs, private jet chartering, because that's the type of people that I'm getting in. So different people,
I love it.
different schools, golf course, people coming on, and I'm interviewing them. We've literally just launched that as well. So every 2 weeks will be a new podcast all about the Costa del Sol, not about me trying to sell properties as such, but just more about that stuff that's interesting to people.
Well, but what you just said there, Chris, and I know because I'm in the space. You just said I'm doing a podcast not about trying to sell property, but indirectly you are
Yeah,
because you right because you're delivering huge amounts of value for free,
yep,
educating people on the place, on the area. They're listening because they've kind of already got an interest.
yeah,
And who are they going to go to when they decide to
exactly.
to make that decision? It's
Yeah,
like, oh, Chris is he's the local expert,
yeah,
and he's British,
hmm
right? Scottish.
yeah.
So he knows, right?
No,
He
exactly,
knows. So
exactly.
we're gonna call Chris. That and it's so powerful. And I completely understand as well what you said about taking that time to
Hmm.
build that authority. That takes time, but with consistency, right? Every day, putting your stuff
Oh
out
yeah,
there, being putting in the consistency. And it's like when people, they're seeing your face, seeing your face, and it's like they start to put it together.
exactly.
And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The people that are in the shadows, consuming your content, thinking, wouldn't it be nice one day, maybe if we can get there and we put in the hours and we get
Yeah,
invest and maybe we can pick up that dream place in the Costa del Sol, and they call you.
yeah,
Eh,
exactly. But I mean, I did have to I had to come right over myself, start from
yeah,
the start again. But again,
yeah,
I could only do this because of the property, the Airbnb
yeah.
site. If I never had that, I couldn't do it.
That was
You
the
don't just,
vehicle.
people watch these selling sunset programs and it looks really easy, but it's not. It takes you need that time with consistency. But now I'm busy all the time. It's been great, but it took about 10 months before I actually earned a penny doing
Yeah.
this, but that helped me.
It's a it's a fantastic business model because what a minefield for people in the UK. All they know is I want a place somewhere here in
Yep.
this vague area. I don't really know any of it. I just know that that's where I want to be.
Hmm.
And I need someone who I can trust, who speaks my language, who's not going to sell me down the road to direct me on the things to do.
Yeah,
How does the paperwork side of it work? All these funny language, I don't know. You know what I mean? So
that is complex.
you're gonna pay someone to deal with that.
Yeah.
And your position is it's really really
But
cool.
they
And
don't pay me. That's the
I'm
thing. They get my
right.
service for free, So ultimately, if
Yeah,
anybody's want to use me to find them a property,
yeah,
I'll do all the sourcing. I'll get them information, and then when they come over, I'll take them out viewings and I'll take them round the places.
yeah,
I'll introduce them to solicitors and to visa specialists and all that stuff. I mean, obviously they charge, but I'll get them
yeah,
to the right people who I use and I recommend. So that's what I do here, and I absolutely love it.
yeah. No doubt, no doubt. It sounds amazing. So we're coming to the end here, Chris.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of stuff. There's
Oh,
a lot more that I'd love to talk about. Um, just tell me in just a couple of minutes what is your day to day life outside of selling villas like? How does your life look now that you're based in Marbella?
I mean, what the big thing for me is, right, is that you can plan, if I want to, if I want to have a few drinks at night and go for a nice meal and stuff with my partner, we can we can do that. And if we're a little bit hungover, we can go a lovely walk down the beach. You know, you could there's just
Hmm.
you can do that. There's so much cultural stuff going on as well all the time, um, which I absolutely love. But it's just the sun for me. You know, I can plan ahead in 3 weeks' time of a barbecue, if I want to. You know, in
Hmm.
Scotland, we had to wait and see on the day. You know, and it might rain.
Russian
It,
roulette.
it was just things like that. You can forward plan. You do a lot more walking as well, just because the weather's fantastic.
Hmm.
You know, there's like 330 days of sun a year here, roundabout. So I mean, I mean, I was on the beach on Christmas Day. The family came over, you know, on the beach. So absolutely brilliant. Um,
And the best thing about all
yeah,
of that stuff, same as here in the Balearics, is it's free. You
exactly.
can you can get up on a Sunday, you can go for a 10-kilometer walk
Easy.
along the Paseo Maritimo, right? Find a nice park bench, pull out your paper, get yourself a little cafe con leche,
Yep,
and it costs nothing, right?
exactly.
It's the best thing about being here. So, mate, it is genuinely uh, very inspiring, and I hope that people who are listening who maybe aren't living the life that they dreamt of, uh, look at your story, listen to what you've said, seen the adversity that you've gone through, seen the work that you put in, and now seeing the end result of you, living this idyllic life over in Spain shows that it's possible.
Yeah.
It's really really cool, and yeah, I want to talk to you actually off the podcast about some potential opportunities out here in Mallorca, but
Okay.
we'll save that for another time.
Perfect.
Just lastly, Chris, one question that I like to ask all the guests that come on here. I'm a huge advocate for mental health.
Yep.
I've had my own struggles with it, depression,
Yeah, me
anxiety,
too.
huge lows, big traumas, relationships. I've fallen apart multiple times off the back of relationships. Um, so I think it's easy with social media, especially in property. Everybody's out there lighting the world on fire, right? Apparently, and it's all seemingly so easy. And a lot of people are sitting at home, maybe just getting started. Maybe they're, you know, working in a supermarket, sweeping streets, cleaning toilets, whatever it is, right? And they're looking at all these people climbing off their private jets and getting out their Lamborghinis, and they're like, it's completely untouchable for me. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. Um, and I just want to say to those people that you can do it. You are good enough. You are smart enough. You can achieve your dreams. Don't compare yourself every day to these people on social media, because 99.9 of it is percent of it is bullshit, as
Yeah,
we know.
100%.
But I also want them to know that people who have seemingly achieved their lifestyle by design, which I think you honestly have, they might look at you and go, "Well, it was easy for Chris. He had this, he had that. Now he's living this great life. It's okay for him." But I want them to know that it's not easy. You've had your challenges, you've
Yeah.
had your battles, right? So where I'm going with it is asking you to be vulnerable with how you are today, with everything that you've been through and where you are today. And it's quite simply, are you happy? Are you happy mentally with yourself where you are today in this very moment?
Yeah, right now I'm happy. I mean, obviously, even though I'm here, I do sometimes have my struggles, but it's sometimes I don't know when to stop, work-wise.
Mm.
So you can get a little bit of burnout, but that's just something I need to deal with. But overall, I'm very happy, you know, and I wake up and I'm looking at a beautiful view in the sun, and I'm very thankful to have
Yeah.
that and to been able to get to this point. And who knows what my future's going to look like as well. Hopefully, long may this continue.
What would your final words be to not your final words, but finally, what words would you give to someone who's listening, thinking, "Damn, I want a life like Chris has got. I'm here. How do I get there? Is it possible? What would your words be to them?"
I think just importantly, just get out there and do it. You know, try, make mistakes, learn from the mistakes, try again. You know, I think that's really the thing. But you need to have a rough idea. I mean, I never really had a rough. I kind of knew I wanted to do something better. But ultimately, just try. try and make mistakes, learn from your mistakes, and then move on and just keep doing that. And then consistency builds. You need to be consistent with it.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, there's a real recipe there, Chris. You know, and when this episode comes out and listen back to it, you know, for anyone who hears it, and maybe, you know, for you to reflect, listen back to it, and you'll see, and I've seen listening to it, there's a very clear recipe here and steps that you've taken that have led to this. It's not by chance, it's not by luck, right? You had your cards dealt to you, you've thrown them away, and now you've got a new deck.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's amazing, and it just shows like what's possible if you put yourself out there, if you're consistent, if you've got a clear vision, and a clear why, and you realize that time is finite, materialistic shit doesn't bring you long-term happiness, and use that money to give you experiences and freedom, time freedom, health, all of that stuff before you go out and spunk it on a, you know, 60 monthly payments, on the Range Rover that you can just about squeeze onto your single car driveway. So amazing, mate. It's been fantastic. I've really genuinely enjoyed it. And yeah, let's continue the conversation. So thanks so much for coming on. I think there was a lot of inspiration there. And for everybody listening and watching at home, thank you so much for listening to the Airbnb Nomads podcast. And we'll see you again on the next episode next week. Thanks so much.